Live from Washington, D.C., Jay Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow.
On December 6th, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, recognized Israel as the capital, Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, ordered the U.S. Embassy to be moved. As I said on the broadcast yesterday, that's going to take a couple of years to do because they got to build it. It houses over 1,000 employees. This was done, the President said, with the goal of peace. It also takes off the table what always became the non-starter in these negotiations. And the non-starter in the negotiations was the issue of Jerusalem. So by the President saying the capital of Israel is Jerusalem, as Israel has recognized itself, and as not nation states can determine where their capitals are, it takes that off the table. And he said, now you'll talk about areas, landmass boundaries. That's something to negotiation. But let's get off the table the issue of Jerusalem being the capital of Israel. The United States recognizes it. The embassy is going to be moved. Presidents have been saying this for over 20 years. 22 years to be exact, and never did it. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, did it. He was supported in that move by Representative Eliot Engel, the top Democrat on the Foreign Affairs Committee, who said the decision is long overdue and helps correct a decades-long indignity. I support the decision to recognize Jerusalem as the eternal capital of Israel and to move the U.S. Embassy there. It recognizes where Israel's government, the parliament, prime minister is based, as well as the ancient an unbreakable connection between the Jewish people and Jerusalem. That's Eliot Engel, Democrat. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer also endorsed the move of the president here. So bipartisan support for this. We're taking your calls. I want your reaction on this. We go first to Jordan, then I'm going to go with Van.
This was a huge announcement for the world, but especially for America standing with Israel, our partner in the Jewish state of Israel, our greatest ally in the Middle East. It sent a signal that after years of U.S. presidents, Republicans and Democrats saying that they might do it, they may do it, even to a point where you could not put Jerusalem on your passport as where you were born. I mean, as an Israeli. I mean, it got to that point. Now it is clear that with the president recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, those Israelis born in Jerusalem will be able to put Jerusalem down as the capital of the of their home on their passports. Yep. And it sends a message to the world that, you know what, Palestinians, move along. If this is, if you really want peace, move past the issue of a talking point. You were never going to win. You were never going to get back Jerusalem. It was not going to happen. There are parts of Jerusalem, East Jerusalem and others, that may be, but the main central part of Jerusalem that they want includes the Dome of the Rock. It's not going back to the Palestinians, and that was made clear by the U.S. president yesterday. So we should all support what President Trump has done, and that's why there is bipartisan support coming from those bipartisan members of Congress, those Democrats who strongly support Israel. Of course, the Keith Ellison types, very nasty about this move.
Yeah, not surprising, by the way. All right, folks, as we get ready to go to a break, let me encourage you. We've been talking about the situation in Jerusalem, this big move by the president, big move for Israel, big move for the United States. Your support of the ACLJ allows us to do our work in Jerusalem. We've got an office there. Go to aclj.org. Any amount you donate, we get a matching gift for. That's aclj.org, or you can call in your pledge at 1-877-989-2255. That's 877-989-2255 or aclj.org.
It is a critical time for our nation, and the American Center for Law and Justice is on the front lines, defending life and liberty, engaging the issues that matter most to you and your family. Whether it's working to protect Americans from the dangers of radical Islam and the persecution of Christians, to defending life at the U.S. Supreme Court, to protecting your religious and constitutional freedoms, we could not do this work without you, without your support. And now your support can really make a tremendous difference. For a limited time, you can participate in the ACLJ Matching Challenge. If you make a gift now, it will be doubled. $25 becomes $50. A $100 gift becomes $200. Please stand with the ACLJ right now and call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or go online at aclj.org. Thank you for your support.
All right, so let's be very clear here. The Jerusalem Embassy Act was passed in 1995. It passed with overwhelming bipartisan support in the House, 374 to 37, and the Senate 93 to 5 on October 24th, 1995. It was presented to Bill Clinton. The bill was left unsigned, but because it was unsigned in 10 days, it became law. So it is the law. So what did the president do here? He declared he made a declaration as his inherent constitutional authority as the president, as commander-in-chief, but as the president of the United States, when it comes to foreign policy solely within the jurisdiction of the executive, to recognize what the president said is a fact, and that is Jerusalem is and has been the capital of Israel. And now we're just recognizing, listen to what the president said.
After more than 2 decades of waivers, we are no closer to a lasting peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. It would be folly to assume that repeating the exact same formula would now produce a different or better result. Therefore, I have determined that it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
I can't tell you how happy that is for us at the ACLJ and our offices. We've been working on this for 25 years. Or 22 years since the legislation passed, but really since our founding. This is an historic moment. But there was a really great question that came in via Facebook that I want to answer, and then we're going to go take some calls and get some more comments here.
It is from Regina Travis. She said, how does the U.S. president have the authority to make the decision of this Jerusalem proclamation?
Okay, so that's a great question. So what's the presidential authority? He has both the constitutional authority under Article 2, his power as president, and he also has statutory authority. So he had both this 1995 legislation, the PAC. The act was designed to state U.S. policy and authorize and incentivize the relocation of the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which the president's going to do, although it will take years to get that in place because you got to build it and it's got to be secure and it houses almost 1,000 people. But the Constitution allows for that. You know, there's an interesting finding in the article. I want to say this. In Section 2 of that legislation, it says the act recognizes that, quote, since 1950, the city of Jerusalem has been the capital of the state of Israel. It goes on to say, the United States maintains its embassies functioning capital of every country except in the case of our democratic friend and strategic ally, the state of Israel. And that 1996 marks the 3,000th year anniversary of the Jewish presence in Jerusalem since King David's entry. And that is now, of course, 3,022 years. But here it was, the president of the United States, Donald Trump, was the one that executes that law and executes that impact. Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, this is, again, so you've got the clear statutory authority. In fact, it dates back, again, to the 1990s when, in fact, what the U.S. law said was the Congress wanted to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, understood the diplomatic concerns, so gave the president the option of waiving out of that until they deemed it was the right time. But on the books, legislatively, the United States government, through the Congress, had already said, we want to recognize Jerusalem as the capital, but we want to give the president the power to make that ultimate decision. That is what President Trump did yesterday, following statutes that have been on the books since the 1990s, and that involves then the first step, recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. The second step is ultimately moving the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which is, again, a multi-step process. It's not just a day and you move your whole embassy.
You know, Than, a lot of leaders have come and gone. A lot of leaders have said they were going to do this. A lot of presidents, Republican, Democrats, but they didn't. but Donald Trump did. What's been the reaction on Capitol Hill?
Well, I would just say that extends back to before the statute was even passed, all the way back to 1950 when our sovereign ally declared Jerusalem as the capital. And then for the last 22 years after Congress tried to force the chief executive, each one from both parties, Jay, they have declined to do it until yesterday when President Trump did. And just one final point. We talked about this when you were here yesterday. But a year ago, Jay, we were fighting at the United Nations to keep the United States from abandoning the nation of Israel there at the Security Council. Today, just a year later, exactly the opposite has happened, and President Trump is at the forefront of standing up for our chief ally in the region. The turnabout in the work that we do in this realm, Jay, it's night and day from a year ago.
Oh, no, look, a year ago, as you said, a year ago they're passing, the United States is refusing to veto sanctions against Israel, and here we are a year later, and the President of the United States is recognizing Israel as the eternal capital of Jerusalem as the eternal capital of Israel. Like I said this the other day, I think it was yesterday actually on the radio broadcast. At the ACLJ, we don't just analyze the news, we make the news, and we are the news. We have an office in Jerusalem. You're going to be hearing from our executive director, our director general, in the next segment of the broadcast. Let's go ahead and take some calls, Logan.
Robert from Maryland on line 1.
Hey, Robert, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Jay and Jordan and Dan. I wanted to ask you, since the president made the proclamation that the United States of America is recognizing the city of Jerusalem as capital of the nation of Israel, how long is it going to actually take to move our embassy from Tel Aviv over to Jerusalem?
Probably 3 to 4 years because it's a big embassy. So it houses 1,000 employees. There's 1,000 employees there, and the nature of the security that has to be put in place, as you can imagine, is very significant. So that will all go forward, though. But I think as that is now in process, so you'll have these waivers that'll still have to take place because it takes time to move it. But symbolically and legally, this was a really big step. I mean, you look at I think it's the most significant global step that the president's taken thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sends a major signal through the entire Middle East, through our allies like Jordan and Saudi Arabia, that yes, we will work with you to fight terror, but we are not going to let you dictate our foreign policy when it comes to Israel. If we want to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, we will do that as the most powerful country in the world, and we do not care about your protests and your threats. If you can't keep your own people under control because of the capital of another country and the U.S. recognizing that capital, then that says more about you as a leader and your own people's problems. And I think that that's what we'll actually see coming out of this is the Islamic world so out of control that if a capital is deemed in another country, not their country, in another country by a superpower like the U.S., can they not keep control of their people? Must they always turn to violence to protest any decisions? They have the right to protest decisions, but must it always be a turn to violence when you talk about the Muslim world?
Let me give you some of the foreign reaction here. So Ahmed Safadi, Jordan's foreign minister, responded to the decision saying that recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital frustrates peace efforts and provokes both Muslims and Christians. Jordan rejects the decision and all its implications, will continue to work for an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. Let me tell you something about the Jordanians with all due respect, okay? They don't want they specifically do not want the Palestinians in a separate state, okay? This is political nonsense. And the threats of violence here, so you got the Saudi Arabians, the Qataris, the Kuwait, and Egypt have all warned the White House the decision could provoke violence not just in Palestinian territories, but the wider Arab world. Let me tell you this. If tomorrow's day of rage becomes a day of rage and they do what they typically do, Hamas and Hezbollah and these terror cells, and they start causing problems, the Israelis are going to defend themselves. But you know what? No longer are we, the United States of America, going to have our foreign policies dictated by terrorists. How about that? No longer will the United States allow our foreign policy to be dictated by terrorists. And cut those terrorists off. Stop the funding. So if there is outrage tomorrow in this day of rage and people are hurt, injured, or killed, cut off the money. Saudi Arabia needs the United States. You know who else they need right now? Israel. So they can play all the political games they want to play, but that's what it is, political games. Let's go ahead and take another phone call.
Let's go to Dennis in Connecticut on line 2. You're on the air.
Hi, Dennis.
Hey, guys, I love the show.
Thanks.
Got a quick question for you, actually 2 questions,
Sure.
and I think Jay addressed my second one. If God declares this, he did declare Jerusalem this capital, why does the Jewish state say or entertain, I thought I heard it yesterday on the news, that there possibly could be a dual capital with the Palestine state. And second, Jay, I maybe addressed it. Is it possible for these neighboring states that are so concerned?
Yeah.
Why don't they give them some territory?
Well, there
Why
you
don't
go.
they just,
Your second question is you hit the mark. If they're so concerned about the Palestinians having their own state, give them some land in Jordan. They were there anyways. I mean, they're right next door. But Gaza. Do you think the Egyptians want a Palestinian state on their border? Here's the answer. No, they don't. So what you have is, and by the way, I heard some of those comments too yesterday, Dennis. I heard some of those comments about, that there could still be a dual capital. That can be, look, negotiations can go on between the parties now because one thing's off the table. Israel's capital is Jerusalem. The boundaries and borders of that will be determined by the parties if they negotiate. But no longer will this be the impediment to negotiation, which didn't work under Ronald Reagan. It didn't work under George H.W. Bush. It didn't work under Bill Clinton. It didn't work under George W. Bush. And it didn't work under Barack Obama. So guess what? President Trump says, we're going to do what the law said since 1995 and what is reality on the ground. Hey, don't forget our matching challenge campaign, aclj.org for that. Any amount you donate goes to our work at the ACLJ, but it's doubled this month because we've got a matching gift. And let me tell you what that means, folks. For those of you that are supporting our work, you talk about Israel, we've got an office and have had it for over a decade in Jerusalem, in the heart of the city, blocks from the Western Wall, literally walking blocks, aclj.org.
It is a critical time for our nation, and the American Center for Law and Justice is on the front lines, defending life and liberty, engaging the issues that matter most to you and your family. Whether it's working to protect Americans from the dangers of radical Islam and the persecution of Christians, to defending life at the U.S. Supreme Court, to protecting your religious and constitutional freedoms, we could not do this work without you, without your support. And now your support can really make a tremendous difference. For a limited time, you can participate in the ACLJ Matching Challenge. If you make a gift now, it will be doubled. $25 becomes $50. A $100 gift becomes $200. Please stand with the ACLJ right now and call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or go online at aclj.org. Thank you for your support.
All right, so the president does recognize what is reality, and that Jerusalem is the eternal capital of the Jewish state of Israel. This is something we've been working on for over 25 years, and we've been working on that for many of those years with our Director General from our office in Jerusalem, who's been on this broadcast many times. He's calling from our office in Jerusalem right now, Rami Levy. Rami, welcome to the broadcast. Give me your reaction. We're going to play some of Benjamin Netanyahu's response to this in a moment, but I wanted to get your reaction to this as our Director General.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm in Jerusalem. I was born in Jerusalem. Our office is in Jerusalem, and Jerusalem did not have such a happy time since I've known it. Yesterday, I've met the Minister of Justice of Israel, Ayelet Shaked, who spoke so highly of what has happened and what the ACLJ has done for it. So I'm super proud, super happy as an Israeli citizen and as the Director General of the ACLJ in Jerusalem.
Well, Rami, this is obviously something you and I and our team have been working on for, my goodness, since for almost 20 years, and some of us even longer. What is the sense of the Israelis on the street?
Well, the sense is that it's a historic time, a milestone in the history of Israel and the Jewish people. super important for us, as important, if not more important, than the Balfour Declaration. So everyone here is super excited, super happy. Although there are some threats from Palestinians, the Hezbollah, etc., we understand that this is the region, and we're very happy about the declaration.
You know, Rami, one of the things that I've said, what I appreciated so much with what the president did yesterday on this was that he is no longer allowing, and I think this is really important, terrorists to determine the foreign policy and the foreign policy goals and agenda of the United States. And I think that's been just really long overdue. So now the president said, I'm not going to allow this anymore. We're not going to allow these entities to do this. And I think that bodes very well for where we are and where we want to go. And I think as we look at the situation right now, this has been a major step forward. Now, we know Hezbollah, Rami, and these other groups are going to react. But again, the reaction in this neighborhood is always something the Israelis are prepared for. You'd compare this as significant as the Balfour Declaration, and I tend to agree. I think having the United States finally say this, we've had it on the books, but actually doing it is very significant. Let me play for you what your Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, said yesterday.
We're profoundly grateful for the President for his courageous and just decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and to prepare for the opening of the U.S. Embassy here. This decision reflects the President's commitment to an ancient but enduring truth, to fulfilling his promises, and to advancing peace.
Rami, I think it's important for you to explain to our members that are listening to this broadcast, our friends that are listening on radio or watching on TV, the work that the ACLJ has been doing now for over a decade in Jerusalem on so many issues, including this. But I think hearing it from you will make a big difference so people understand the scope, that we don't just talk about it here, we're taking action.
Yes, I think one of the most important issues we've been dealing with is the legal aspect of working for the State of Israel, for the Prime Minister's office, for the Foreign Ministry, and the Ministry of Justice of Israel in exposing the real face of the Palestinians. I used to call it Hollywood. All their actions that they were threatening to take, all the use of strategies to lie to the world and threaten the world. And I think the fact that the ACLJ has been constantly feeding the world and helping the State of Israel show the real truth has been super important also in the decision-making of the American administration, probably President Trump,
Yep.
In seeing what the strategies of the Palestinians and the Arabs are to try to deter us from doing the right thing, such as the declaration yesterday.
Let me go ahead and take a phone call because we get calls from all over the world oftentimes, and we've got one from your area.
Yes, Lou's calling from Israel on line 2. Lou, welcome to the show. Thanks for holding.
Hey, Lou.
Hi, Jay. How are you?
Good.
I met you some years ago at AIPAC.
Right.
I know you don't like to toot your own horn, but I feel that you are one of the major people responsible for what happened yesterday with this announcement yesterday. And so I would like to commend you for that. And I know you've been working on it for many, many years. I don't know if you realize that there are over 300,000 American Jews living here.
Yep.
American citizens living here. And most of who are Republicans, like myself, which is unlike what it's like in the States. You know, there's only what about 15, 20% in the States.
Right.
And we really appreciate President Trump. And we just appreciate what you're doing. And it's like what Rami Levy just said. This is on a par with the Balfour Declaration.
Yeah.
And I would say it's even almost on a par with the founding of the modern state of Israel.
Well, I think because, first of all, Lou, let me tell you how much I appreciate your kind words. But ultimately, this was, while we've been working on it, this was the President of the United States taking bold, decisive, and direct action and not being intimidated by terrorists. No longer will terrorists dictate the policies of the United States. So it's our pleasure to work alongside the President But ultimately, and Rami knows this, it was the president's decision. But as many people know, in addition to serving as the chief counsel for the ACLJ, I also represent the president of the United States as a private attorney. And I will tell you that it was a very proud moment yesterday in Washington, D.C., when that announcement was made. And it's an emotional moment for everybody. But also, I think, Rami, it's a historic moment for the Jewish people that the United States has taken this bold action.
Yes. And I'm saying it again. I'm talking now as an Israeli citizen that served in the military for so long. Yesterday, what I've done in the evening, I went up to Mount Scopus, overlooked Jerusalem, and was very, very happy and proud. I can tell you that today, this morning, it was one of the coldest days in Jerusalem, but the people's hearts were so warm. And Jay, I want to reiterate again, the decision was made by President Trump, but there is no question in my mind that the 20 years of work that you have done throughout the Israeli and the American administrations, helping the bureaucrats understand the strategies, the way to achieve the goals, was a major part of this decision and declaration, but also in many other areas.
Well,
the ACLJ is working.
We appreciate that. We're running out of time here. We appreciate your comments. And let me just say, echoing something Rami just said, while a lot of people are thanking us and we're thanking the president, we need to thank you. Without your support of the ACLJ, our office in Jerusalem doesn't exist. And our ability to do this work around the globe doesn't exist. So again, a huge thank you to our friends that support the work of the American Center for Law and Justice. We're in a matching challenge. December's our biggest month of the year. ACLJ.org. That's ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. We're in a matching challenge campaign, which means any amount you donate, we get a matching gift for. 1-877-989-2255 or ACLJ.org. We'll talk to you next week.
It is a critical time for our nation, and the American Center for Law and Justice is on the front lines, defending life and liberty, engaging the issues that matter most to you and your family. Whether it's working to protect Americans from the dangers of radical Islam and the persecution of Christians, to defending life at the U.S. Supreme Court, to protecting your religious and constitutional freedoms, we could not do this work without you, without your support. And now your support can really make a tremendous difference. For a limited time, you can participate in the ACLJ Matching Challenge. If you make a gift now, it will be doubled. $25 becomes $50. A $100 gift becomes $200. Please stand with the ACLJ right now and call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or go online at aclj.org. Thank you for your support.